My next guest expects the launch of the iPad 2 to be even more successful than the original iPad debut. Brian Marshall of Gleacher Company is a Bloomberg Best on Apple, one of the most accurate analysts on the company. Brian, welcome to Bloomberg West. Great to have you here. So, first question, is it definitely about the iPad 2 tomorrow?
I think so, Emily. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the marketing, the timing of the product refreshes, I do think it's the iPad 2, and that's what everybody expects from an investment community standpoint.
So we're hearing reports that Steve Jobs is considering coming to the event tomorrow. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm not 100% sure, but I don't know what the company would gain by that. Clearly, he's on medical leave. Nobody expects him to be there. I think it's in his best interest to focus on the number one issue at hand, and that's his health. And so I think the investment community is very comfortable with Tim leading up the event tomorrow.
So features, what's the iPad 2 going to look like?
Well, I think it's going to look very similar to the iPad, the original one. I think it'll be a little bit thinner, a little bit lighter weight, obviously more powerful, and I think the key differentiating factor will be two cameras. One camera on the front, one camera on the back, obviously enabling the feature that everybody loves, FaceTime.
Brian, let me ask you about units. What kind of sales do you expect from this device, and when do you think it's going to finally get to market? We'll get an introduction probably tomorrow, but then what?
Sure. Yeah, it's a good question, Cory. I mean, if you look at it, I think we'll probably see the product hit the market or hit the shelves in the month of April. Clearly, this is going to be widely anticipated, and there's a lot of demand out there. It's pent up. So clearly, we expect very strong numbers. If you look at the first iPad, obviously, we shipped about 1 million units in the first 28 days, 300,000 units in the first opening weekend. I think we're going to blow those numbers out of the water with the iPad 2. For the full year, I'm actually expecting 30 million iPads for calendar year 2011. I think that number is conservative.
How crucial is the timing of this announcement with other tablets hitting the market?
From a timing perspective, I mean, obviously, Apple enthusiasts, Apple loyal customer base want new products every year. So, if Apple doesn't get on, or if they get off that annual refresh cycle, that would be problematic. So, I don't think that's going to happen. Obviously, Apple runs very hard to have that annual refresh, and so I think that the April launch is a probably launch that we're going to see not missed. They're going to be very strong, and I think they're going to hit the market well, and I think there will be no issues from a competitive perspective.
Brian, what is it about this device that's captured the attention and the purchases of so many people and companies that's been so different than anything Apple's done in the past?
Well, if you look at it, they basically created the market from nothing. I mean, if Apple didn't introduce the iPad, we wouldn't have Motorola talking about the Zoom, RIM talking about the Playbook. So it created a phenomenal market out of nowhere. And so, this year I'm estimating almost $20 billion in iPad sales. I mean, that's a phenomenal number, basically from, nothing 2 years ago, obviously. So, just a tremendous growth opportunity. The enterprise is embracing it. The consumer market's embracing it. So really represents kind of a new wave of computing, if you will.
Do other tablets stand a chance?
Well, it depends on what you define as a chance. I think everybody's focusing on, basically, probably 10% market share. So if I estimate 50 million units this year, we're looking at, probably 5 million units would be success for the number two guy.
We're also seeing reports that design guru Jonathan Ive considering moving back to the UK. What do you know about this, and how big a loss would this be for Apple?
Well, Johnny Ive lives in my neighborhood, but unfortunately I don't know too much other than what I've read. So if you look at it, I think, obviously that would be a big blow. Clearly he's the defining light when it comes from a product standpoint, along with Steve Jobs. So for him to move back to England and not be able to continue his effort as head of industrial design at Apple would be problematic.
Brian, what about profit margins for the iPad? I know that they tend to bring margins down for the whole company because of the aggressive pricing they took or didn't take last time. What do we expect going forward, and what does that tell us about their strategy?
Sure. I estimate the prices or the gross margins on the iPad to be in the low 30s. Obviously.
Low 30s?
Low 30s, actually, yes. I think that can increase over time as we hit more volume production and the sort of the constrained components, if you will, from a glass perspective get ironed out. I think prices will come down, obviously impacting positively the gross margin side. So, I think going forward we could potentially see a price cut due to, the lowering of the BOM or the bill of materials of the other products there. From a gross margin perspective, don't expect much change. If anything, it could go up a little bit, but again, not expecting too much.
All right, thanks so much, Brian Marshall.
Thanks.
Always great to have you on. We'll see if you're right about the iPad 2 tomorrow.